Welcome back to Beneath the Surface, the dark side of crime. Today, we delve into a case that shakes the very foundation of trust and loyalty. A loving husband, a devoted wife, and a seemingly perfect life, but behind the scenes lies a dark web of manipulation, deceit, and murder. What began as a picture-perfect family life quickly spirals into tragedy when Jamie Faith's life is taken in cold blood by someone he trusted most, his wife. This case is an unnerving reminder that people aren't always what they seem. It explores emotional manipulation, betrayal, and a shocking murder that turned an entire community upside down. Stay with us as we peel back the layers of lies and uncover the chilling truth behind the murder of Jamie Faith. Chapter 1. A Picture. Perfect Life. Jennifer's life had always been a series of challenges, beginning with her first failed marriage. Her first husband, after hearing the news that she was pregnant with Amber, made it clear he didn't want children. This rejection left Jennifer devastated. She never imagined that her life would turn out like this, alone with a baby on the way, abandoned by the man she had married. She poured her heart into raising Amber, but deep down she struggled with feelings of worthlessness. Her second marriage to Rick was meant to be a fresh start, but it ended even quicker than the first. Rick's indifference had shattered her. This time, the pain of rejection hit her harder than ever. But when she met Jamie, everything seemed to change. He was warm, kind, and, most importantly, he accepted Amber as his own. It felt like the world was finally giving Jennifer the happiness she had longed for. Jamie's past was not without its challenges either. Raised in a middle-class neighborhood, he had always been the quiet one. Despite his social nature, he had often felt like an outsider. His career in IT had always been his escape, an opportunity to build something of himself. Jamie loved tech, and his career at American Airlines was a testament to his ambition. Yet, in the back of his mind, he always feared that his dedication to work might make him miss out on a family life. When Jennifer entered his life, Jamie saw in her a woman who had been through hardship, someone who understood his struggles. In Jennifer, he saw not just a partner, but a woman who could be his equal. Her resilience, especially in raising Amber, captivated him. Jennifer had often told him how much she had done alone, yet Jamie wanted to be the one who made her feel like she wasn't alone anymore. He never imagined that the love of his life would betray him in the most brutal way. Chapter 2. The Move to Dallas. The decision to move to Dallas wasn't just about a job opportunity for Jamie. It was about giving their family a fresh start. Moving into the home on South Waverly Drive, in a quiet neighborhood, was a symbol of their success. For Jamie, the house represented stability, something he had never had growing up. For Jennifer, it was a chance to finally settle down and create a permanent home for Amber. Their life in Dallas seemed to be a reflection of their hard work and dedication. The house was more than just walls and a roof. It was a sanctuary where they could build memories as a family. Jamie took pride in decorating their home, making sure it was as beautiful as it was functional. Jennifer's love for hosting gatherings meant that their home was always filled with friends, laughter, and celebrations. But even as they settled in, there were moments of tension. Jennifer was no longer the carefree woman Jamie had fallen in love with. She began to show signs of discontentment that Jamie didn't know how to address. He could feel a subtle distance growing between them, but he didn't understand why. He tried to connect with Jennifer, planning surprise date nights and buying her little gifts, but no matter what he did, she seemed to pull away. Despite these growing tensions, Jamie remained optimistic. He loved Jennifer with all his heart, and believed that they could work through anything together. However, Jennifer's increasing disillusionment with their life in Dallas would soon push her to make a decision that would change everything. Chapter 3. A Brutal Act of Violence. The morning of October 9th began as a typical day for the Faith family. The sun had just risen, casting long, warm shadows on the streets of South Waverly Drive. Jennifer and Jamie, hand in hand, strolled down their quiet street, their dog Maggie trailing happily behind. It was a peaceful moment. a rare moment of calm in the midst of their busy lives. What Jennifer couldn't have known was that this walk would be her last with Jamie. As they turned the corner, the masked man appeared from behind, his movements quick and calculated. He approached them from behind, and without warning, he pulled out a gun and fired. Jamie, taken completely by surprise, had no time to react. The first shot struck him in the head, and as he crumpled to the ground, the man fired again. 3 more bullets hit Jamie in the chest and 1 in his groin. Jennifer's screams pierced the air, a chilling sound that echoed through the neighborhood. Neighbors began to emerge from their homes, confused and frightened. One neighbor, hearing the shots and Jennifer's cries for help, called 911 in a panic, saying, "I think my neighbor just got shot." The shooter's next target was Jennifer. He knocked her to the ground with terrifying ease. She fought back, kicking and screaming, but the man was relentless. He duct-taped her wrists, trying to rob her of her rings. When he couldn't remove them, he moved on to trying to harm their dog, Maggie. The fear in Jennifer's eyes was palpable as she realized her husband's life had been taken in an instant, and now she was the next target. But the shooter wasn't done. He took Jamie's wedding ring, stepped into his black Nissan Titan truck, and sped off, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. Chapter 4. The investigation begins. Dallas police arrived at the scene within minutes, but it was too late for Jamie. The crime scene was chaotic, and the reality of the murder began to sink in. Jamie had been shot in cold blood while walking down the street with his wife. But what baffled the detectives was the strange nature of the attack. It didn't seem like a typical robbery gone wrong. Jennifer's description of the attacker was clear. A broad-shouldered man wearing a blue face mask and a dark hoodie. The man had dark, piercing eyes. He had been quick, efficient, and cold in his execution. He shot Jamie before taking anything, suggesting that the murder was personal in some way. The truck, black, with a Texas Ranger sticker on the back window, was a key piece of evidence. Investigators knew that the vehicle had been involved, but the challenge was finding its owner. They combed through security footage from the neighborhood and spoke to neighbors who had witnessed the shooting. Everyone seemed to agree on one thing. This wasn't a random act. Whoever had done this had planned it carefully. Jennifer, devastated and confused, was brought in for questioning. Her shock was evident, and she could barely make sense of what had happened. "I don't know why," she kept repeating. "Why would anyone do this to Jamie?" But deep down, detectives wondered if there was more to the story than Jennifer was letting on. Chapter 5. The Affair and the Deception. The investigation took a dramatic turn when the police began reviewing Jennifer's phone records. It didn't take long to uncover a series of text messages and phone calls between her and Darren Lopez, a man she had rekindled a relationship with in the months leading up to Jamie's murder. Jennifer and Darren had been in touch since March 2020, reconnecting on social media after years of no contact. Their conversations quickly grew more intense. They reminisced about their high school days, and Darren expressed how much he had thought about Jennifer over the years. He revealed that he had been following her on social media, and soon they began exchanging lengthy messages. It wasn't long before Jennifer confided in Darren about her marriage to Jamie. She told him that Jamie was abusive and that she was trapped in a toxic relationship. She claimed Jamie had hurt her in unimaginable ways, emotionally and physically. She painted Jamie as a villain, a man whose cruelty had caused her emotional scars. Darren, already struggling with his own demons and PTSD from his time in the military, wanted to help Jennifer. He became emotionally attached to her, believing that she was in serious danger. Jennifer played on these emotions, drawing him in with promises of a future together once Jamie was out of the picture. But there was a dark truth that Jennifer was hiding, a truth that no one knew at the time. Chapter 6. The Murder Plot Unfolds. By the time the plot to murder Jamie took shape, Jennifer had manipulated Darren to the point where he was willing to do anything for her. Jennifer knew exactly how to control him, preying on his feelings of guilt and loneliness. She convinced him that Jamie was dangerous and that he was the only one who could protect her. Darren, driven by his feelings for Jennifer, became obsessed with the idea of rescuing her. He believed that by removing Jamie from the picture, he could make Jennifer's life better. He had no idea that he was just a pawn in her cruel game. Jennifer and Darren began to talk about their future together, moving to Tennessee, starting a new life. Jennifer was able to manipulate Darren into thinking that this was the only way she could escape from her abusive marriage. They began to plan the murder. Jennifer carefully orchestrated every detail, from Darren's arrival in Dallas to the timing of the attack. On October 8, 2020, Jennifer sent Darren a message warning him about the Texas Ranger sticker on his truck, telling him to remove it. It was a final attempt to cover their tracks, but Darren didn't understand the gravity of what he was about to do. The next day, he drove to Dallas, armed with the knowledge that his actions would forever change his life and the lives of everyone around him. But then came Jamie. When they met on that blind date, it felt like fate. They had an instant connection, and what began as casual conversations over coffee soon became a whirlwind of late-night phone calls, shared laughter, and dreams about the future. It wasn't long before Jamie moved in with Jennifer and Amber. The three of them became a family. Jamie adored Amber as if she were his own daughter, and that love only deepened when he officially adopted her in 2012. Amber's joy when Jamie signed the adoption papers was palpable. For her, it was more than a legal formality. It was a declaration of love. For Jamie, it was the final piece of a puzzle he hadn't known was missing in his life. Jennifer, too, had never felt more content. With Jamie by her side, she thought she had finally found stability and peace. But there was something that the outside world couldn't see, a darkness brewing beneath the surface. For all their love and celebration, Jennifer carried with her a past filled with unresolved emotions. She had always yearned for someone who could fill the void left by her two failed marriages. Jamie seemed to be the answer to all her prayers, but was he truly everything she needed, or was there something darker festering within her? Chapter 7. The Arrests and the Aftermath. When the police closed in on Darren, they were prepared. They had gathered enough evidence to connect him directly to the murder of Jamie Faith. Darren's movements were meticulously tracked, from the moment he left Tennessee to the day he drove into Dallas. He had made pit stops on his way to Dallas, and each stop was a breadcrumb leading them closer to his involvement in the murder. The investigation team went through his bank statements, his phone records, and even his social media accounts. The most chilling detail of all was that Darren had searched for Jamie's address on Google Maps before making the long drive to Dallas. This was not a random act. It was the culmination of months of manipulation by Jennifer, who had carefully planted the idea in Darren's mind that Jamie was an abusive, controlling monster. When the police arrested Darren, they took him into custody in Tennessee. He didn't put up a fight. His guilt, perhaps, weighed heavily on him. But there was more at play here than just guilt. There was a sense of confusion. Darren had believed for months that he was rescuing Jennifer from a dangerous situation. In his mind, he was doing what any man would do to protect the woman he loved. He never saw the deeper manipulation that Jennifer had used to control him. Jennifer, still reeling from the shock of Jamie's murder, was questioned again. She was asked to recount her relationship with Darren, the details of the affair, and her feelings about her husband. Jennifer, who had been so willing to play the role of the grieving widow, was now trapped in her own web of lies. The detectives showed her the evidence, the text messages, the emails, the phone records. It was all there, proof that Jennifer had orchestrated Jamie's death. At first, Jennifer denied any involvement. "I don't know why this happened," she said, her voice shaky. But as the investigation continued and the mounting evidence became impossible to ignore, she began to realize that her facade was slipping. What had once seemed like the perfect life, a loving husband, a doting father, a happy family, had been nothing more than a lie. But the real weight of her actions hadn't fully set in for Jennifer. she still clung to the belief that she had done nothing wrong. She justified her role in Jamie's murder by telling herself that he had been abusive and that she had only been protecting herself and Amber. In Jennifer's mind, Darren was a hero who had saved her from a toxic marriage. She refused to see the devastation she had caused in her pursuit of freedom. Chapter 8. The Trial. The trial was a spectacle, one that gripped the community and the media alike. The courtroom was filled with reporters, photographers, and curious onlookers who couldn't fathom the story unfolding before them. The case was unlike any other. This was a murder rooted not in money or jealousy, but in manipulation, emotional coercion, and a web of lies spun by the person who was supposed to love Jamie the most. Jennifer's role in the crime was crystal clear. The evidence was overwhelming. Phone records showing hours of communication with Darren, emails that she had sent from fake accounts to paint Jamie as an abuser, and the elaborate lies she had told Darren to make him believe that Jamie was a threat. Jennifer had convinced Darren that her life was in danger, that Jamie was a monster, and that the only way to escape was through murder. The prosecution painted Jennifer as a manipulative mastermind, a woman who had used Darren's love for her to carry out a cold-blooded plan to kill her husband. They detailed how Jennifer had fabricated stories of abuse, even going so far as to send Darren photos of injuries that were, in reality, stock images from the internet. Darren's defense team argued that he had been manipulated by Jennifer, using his post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as a crutch. They claimed that Darren had suffered a brain injury during his military service and that Jennifer had preyed upon his vulnerabilities. She had convinced him that Jamie was a threat, and in his mind, he had been acting out of a misguided sense of duty to protect Jennifer and Amber. As Darren took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. His testimony was heart-wrenching. He described how he had been in love with Jennifer for years, how he had carried the memories of their time together in high school. He told the court how Jennifer had reached out to him after years of silence, telling him about her unhappy marriage and painting Jamie as the villain. But Darren's testimony was also filled with regret. He spoke about the guilt he felt, not just for killing Jamie, but for being manipulated into believing that he was saving Jennifer. He described how his love for her had blinded him to the truth. As he spoke, it became clear to the jury that Darren was not a cold-blooded killer. He was a man who had been tragically deceived. Jennifer, sitting at the defense table, watched as Darren spoke. Her face remained calm, but there was a flicker of guilt in her eyes, a fleeting moment when she realized that her plan had worked. But at what cost? Still, she refused to admit her part in the crime. She remained silent, refusing to take responsibility for the murder that had torn her family apart. Chapter 9. The Verdict and Sentencing. After days of testimony, the jury deliberated. When they returned with a verdict, it was clear. Darren Lopez was guilty of murder. The courtroom was filled with emotion as the verdict was read aloud. Darren's shoulders slumped as the weight of the decision sank in. He had believed he was saving Jennifer, but now he was facing decades in prison for a crime he had been manipulated into committing. Darren was sentenced to 62 years in prison, a fate that seemed almost tragically inevitable. He had been manipulated by Jennifer's lies, used as a pawn in her scheme to get rid of her husband. His love for her, his desire to protect her, had clouded his judgment, leading him to make a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. Jennifer, too, faced her own fate. She pled guilty to orchestrating Jamie's murder, and her sentencing came shortly after Darren's. She was sentenced to life in prison. The judge, after hearing the details of Jennifer's manipulation and the pain she had caused, called her actions pure evil. She had not only taken the life of her husband, but had destroyed the life of her daughter, Amber, who would now grow up without a father. As Jennifer was led away in handcuffs, she looked back at the courtroom. There was no regret on her face, no sign of remorse. Her only concern was herself, her own survival. She had used Darren to get what she wanted, and now she would pay the price for her cruelty. The murder of Jamie Faith is one of the most chilling cases of manipulation and betrayal. Jennifer's ability to manipulate Darren, to twist his emotions and his love for her, is a testament to the depths of her deceit. She painted herself as the victim, convincing Darren that she needed him to kill her husband in order to escape a life of abuse. But the truth was far darker. Jennifer was never the victim. She was the perpetrator. She manipulated Darren for months, feeding him lies and exploiting his vulnerabilities until he was willing to commit murder for her. Jamie, a man who had loved her unconditionally, was taken from the world by the woman he trusted most, and Amber, his daughter, was left to cope with the loss of the man who had been a father to her. The case serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of emotional manipulation and the power that lies can have over those who are vulnerable. Jennifer's calculated actions destroyed not just her marriage but her family, and the ripple effects of her betrayal will be felt for years to come. Thank you for joining us on this deeply emotional and tragic case on Beneath the Surface, the dark side of crime. This story serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of manipulation and deceit, and the devastating consequences they can have on everyone involved. If you found this case as shocking as we did, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to share these important and gripping true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe and remember, always look beneath the surface.